So Michael was directed by Antoine Fuqua and it stars Jafar Jackson, the real-life nephew of Michael Jackson. Also features Coleman Domingo, Nia Long, and Miles Teller. And in this movie, it's about the beginning of Michael Jackson's career, his beginning with the Jackson 5, his relationship with his father Joe Jackson, how he broke away from the Jackson 5 to do his own thing and wound up becoming the legendary king of pop that we knew him as. So this is a movie that I was intrigued by, but also kind of nervous about. On one hand, the casting sounded interesting with Coleman Domingo involved, Jafar Jackson, who is, again, Michael Jackson's nephew. Also, Antoine Fuqua. He's a pretty hit or miss director. Some movies he does are pretty good, like Training Day. Some movies, like Infinite, are really awful. So I was curious to see what he would do. And as far as my history with Michael Jackson, I was not a big fan of his growing up. When I was a kid, he was kind of more the butt of the jokes because of all the horrible things that we kind of also know Michael Jackson for. And I didn't really listen to his music until about sometime after his death. So I will say that, he was definitely a very, very engaging entertainer, definitely a very interesting musician and performing artist. And there's definitely skeletons in the closet, and this movie does show a little bit of that. So I was not going into this movie as a fan of his work or anything. I was kind of going in, it's like saying, okay, let's see what they do with this movie and such. And overall, I think the movie is okay. I think the movie is fine. There's definitely some things that could have been handled better, but I'll get into that towards the end of this video. And there are definitely some good things about it, so let's start with those. First off, Jafar Jackson, I thought he really, really did a good job as Michael. You can definitely tell at times that by the end of the movie, I honestly did not even see an actor. I just saw Michael on screen. And I kind of noticed that with a lot of biopics, at least some of the better biopics, well, maybe not necessarily better biopics, or at least some biopics of recent years, like Bohemian Rhapsody, Elvis, where it's like, I didn't even see actors playing those characters anymore. I just saw those characters, and I think Jafar Jackson is not quite as good as Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody, or even Austin Butler in Elvis, but I do think Jafar Jackson is pretty good in this movie. Considering this is actually his first role, that's impressive. Coleman Domingo is also pretty good as Joe Jackson, but I'm worried he's going to be typecast after this movie. He is a horrible person in this movie. Well, he's also playing a horrible person in real life. But his performance is very scary at times. It's definitely very unnerving and unsettling, and how he kind of manipulates people is just really awful. Nia Long also does a pretty good job in this movie as kind of the opposite to Joe Jackson, how she's more caring to her children, especially to Michael, and I thought that was kind of an interesting concept throughout the entire movie as well. The music in this movie, without a doubt, was really good. Like, they focus a lot on some of his bigger hits, like Beat It, Thriller, Bad. You see a couple scenes where it's like, oh, he's trying to plan out the music videos and choreography as such, particularly with Beat It and Thriller. Like, those were at least very interesting, and like kind of how he eventually kind of came to the realization, like, oh, this is what I should do for these videos and such. Also, the concert sequences themselves, they get better as the movie goes on. By the end, it's like, I actually felt like I was in the audience watching Michael Jackson perform. Like, at first it kind of felt like very made for TV. Like, he looked very cheap. Now, you could argue, oh, it took place in the 70s, that's when, or 60s even, that's when the Jackson 5 was just getting started. So it kind of looked that way. Yeah, I've seen better looks from the 60s in movies and such. But it definitely get better, like when he becomes more of the king of pop than we knew him as, the performances get better. Like, this is definitely a movie that is worth seeing on a big screen if you do see this movie in a theater, which a lot of people have. Also, it was very interesting to see Michael's thought process, like his perfectionism, how it was affected by his dad, also how that kind of led to his behavior, his loneliness in particular. It kind of made me look at him a little differently. Like, I will talk about the stuff that's not in this movie, if you know what I mean, towards the end of the video, but I definitely feel like this movie tries to handle things in a way that's not necessarily the best, but at least it doesn't feel like it's ignoring it. Again, very hard to explain, but I'll explain towards the end of the video. Let's talk about some things I don't like in this movie. First off, some things are just omitted from this movie entirely. Like, some songs are not in this movie. Smooth Criminal, not in this movie. You would think that with, his iconic dance moves in Thriller and Beat It, that they would also throw Smooth Criminal in there, like with all the leaning and such. No, not even referenced. Way You Make Me Feel, not in this movie. Man in the Mirror, surprisingly not in this movie. There's a moment in this movie about 30 minutes from the credits where he's like, I do want to, give back to the people, I want to help people and such. It's like, okay, that seems very noble of you. But ironically, his most famous song about helping the world, is not in this movie. His second after We Are the World, also not in this movie, surprisingly. Also, I do feel like that there were some people that were just completely out of this movie entirely. Diana Ross, her character was cut from this movie. Barry Gordy, barely in this movie. Quincy Jones, not in this movie at all. Like, all these people were very influential to Michael and helped his career, and they're basically being put on the bench, and it just doesn't work. Not necessarily doesn't work, but I felt like it was just insensitive. Also, outside of Joe and Catherine, who actually had characters and such, the rest of Michael's family, not so much. Like, his brothers, no personalities whatsoever. I couldn't tell who was Jermaine or Tito. I couldn't tell who was any of them, and that's unfortunate. LaToya's in this movie, and I felt like she also had no character either. Janet Jackson's not in this movie, but I think that's because Janet Jackson said, I don't want any part of this, so don't put me in the movie, and so she's not in the movie. But it's just kind of weird, like that Janet Jackson, who is arguably the second most famous member of that family, she's not in this movie, unfortunately. Also, I definitely feel like this movie has some CGI problems. Like, when they introduce Bubbles in the movie, Bubbles doesn't look rendered properly. It's just odd. I'm like, oh god, please don't tell me I'm watching Primate again. Or, why didn't they get the people from Better Man to help make those monkey effects? I don't understand. And there's definitely some in-jokes to Michael Jackson's life sprinkled throughout this movie. Like, at one point, there's a few references to Peter Pan, where it's like, okay, so that's supposed to be a joke about Neverland Ranch. But then I kind of thought about it, I'm like, no, it's actually a lot deeper than I realized, because, like, maybe there's, like, a reference to Captain Hook and Back to Joe. It's like, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. But there's, like, one to The Wizard of Oz that just completely fell flat. It's like, oh, right, because he was in The Wiz and such. And also, the movie has a lot of cliches in it, without a doubt. Any biopic these days, especially musician biopics, I try to, like, go into them. Like, I don't really like musician biopics anymore. I feel like they've worn out their welcome, and a lot of them are kind of just the same. It's like, you're in a 1 in a million talent, but here's everything that happened to this person that's just pretty much the same as every other musician out there. And that was kind of annoying. Like, it literally starts off with Michael Jackson about to go on stage, but he is thinking about his life. Seriously, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Did people just not see that movie? That movie still holds up. And it's about 20 years after that movie came out. And it's amazing that a lot of these directors who are making musician biopic movies are still doing that. It's like, he's got to think about his entire life before he goes on stage. It's like, that was a joke in that movie. And in every biopic movie, it's still a thing. And it's amazing to me. Also, mainly this is kind of a bigger picture overall, but I feel like because of, how big and how wild and how crazy Michael's life really was, that maybe a 2-hour movie was never going to suffice. Like, I feel like Michael's life would have been better fit for, like, a TV show, like, not necessarily a TV show, maybe like a miniseries, like a 10-episode miniseries, like each episode takes place over the course of a few years. But I definitely feel like this movie tried to condense at least the first part of his life, because I guess they want to try to make a sequel where maybe they will reference some things that aren't referenced in this movie, because there are some things that I won't say in this channel, but there are definitely some horrible things that Michael Jackson was accused of and was in court over, and they don't reference it in the movie in a direct way. They don't say anything about it, but there is some subtlety with it, I guess, about how his life affected his mental health, like particularly how his relationship with his dad affected him personally, like how he sees himself with the world. And it's kind of interesting, but it's also, I don't know if it's entirely the best way to do this. It kind of reminded me of the drama. It's like, you're taking something where it's like, that movie talked about something that was very controversial and very hard to talk about, and I don't know if you're handling it the best way. And I kind of feel the same way with this movie, where there were a lot of things in this movie that they should have at least mentioned, but they didn't. And the way they do, I'm not entirely sure if it worked, but it's like, it's not ignoring it, but just not saying it. Again, if you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's just, and I can understand if some people are like, oh, because of those reasons, I'm not seeing this movie, and I completely understand that. So, again, this may be for, like, Michael Jackson fans only, who, no matter what, they will stand by him, but, like, I don't like those excuses, because, like, I was a huge fan of Queen, for instance, and the fact that I hated Bohemian Rhapsody, that's kind of a stupid argument, in my opinion. Also, I realized this. There's a cameo in this movie from someone who also appeared in Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm like, is this going to be a trend now in these movies and such? I don't get it. But that's a side point. So, Michael, the performances are pretty good, particularly from Jafar Jackson. Coleman Domingo and Nia Long are also really good. The music, obviously, is really good. The concert sequences do get better. And it is fascinating to kind of see what Michael's life was like and how that kind of affected him mentally and sometimes even physically. But I definitely feel like I was missing some songs I really wanted to hear. There's some people in his life that I felt like could have been used better, like Berry Gordy again. It's like, oh, he could be an actual good father figure, an actually good male role model for Michael, and it's just completely wasted. Like, a lot of people who could have been in his life, who were in his life, and are not in this movie. Very upsetting. Some CGI and in-jokes could have been better. The cliches are obvious. There are missed opportunities with his family and other people in his life. And again, I feel like Michael's life, a lot of it is just too big. And I feel like it should have been, there's definitely needs to be more. And again, the things that he was, unfortunately, also known for, I don't know if it's handled well. And I'm not going to persuade people to see it one way or another, but I will give it 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, who's a musician that you want to see a biopic on? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.